welcome everyone to our August #HireMe2021 guest panel speaker series hosted by BCJobs.ca. Every month we have 3 special guest speakers from various sectors join us for a Q&A on what's new with their companies. My name is Chelsea Sweeney, the Director of Events for BC Jobs, and I'll be your host today. BC Jobs is Western Canada's biggest online jobs board. And in addition to this guest speaker panel series, we also offer annual virtual career fairs. Our next one is on October 7th in partnership with TechNation Canada and sponsored by BC Pension Corporation. And we also have our really cool Innovators podcast available online. Before we get going here, I want to encourage the audience to type your questions into the chat box at any point, and we will get to your questions shortly. We will also be trying something a little new today and offering a pitch event during this panel. So in the chat box, you can enter your name, location, area of expertise, years of experience. I'll type this into the chat box in a second. 3 candidates will be drawn for a 30-second pitch to tell Klue, Kabu, and FISPAN about yourself at the start of the audience Q&A. So the person with the best pitch will receive a 30-minute resume and interview consultation with BC Jobs. So let me just type that into the chat. So feel free to enter your name. I'm just going to type this in here. So pitch event. So you can enter your name, location, area of expertise, and your years of experience. So then in about half an hour or so, I will choose 3 names, 3 people to give a 30-second quick pitch to our guest speakers today. And then the person with the best pitch will receive an email from me inviting you to a 30-minute resume and interview consultation with BC Jobs. Okay. So with that said, we're going to get rolling on some introductions here. So I'm going to pass the virtual mic over to Kathy Enros, the VP of People from Klue. Kathy, tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Chelsea. Nice to meet everyone virtually. So my name is Kathy. I am the head of people at Klue. Klue is a software as a service company based here in Vancouver. Then we focus on competitive intelligence. For those of you that know sales, you may have used battle cards. Basically, we automate battle cards so that salespeople understand they have as much information as possible about their competitors so that when they're pitching, they can deposition and hopefully win more deals. We are about 105 people strong now, most of which are here in Vancouver, but we do have folks in Toronto, Amsterdam, and of course with COVID, we've hired a lot of folks that are just kind of working from anywhere these days. So yeah, and I myself have been in the tech industry, gosh, for about 15 years now. I've been with 2 other super hyper fast growing companies, Vision Critical, which is now called Alida. I started at that company in the early stages and left when it was about 800. And then I moved over to ACL, which then rebranded as Galvanize, which was then just acquired as one of the local tech unicorns. Happy and proud to be a part of that. And now here to hopefully have Klue be the next tech unicorn in Vancouver.
Thanks for sharing, Kathy. That's very exciting. We'll move over to Martin Vandenhemel, Director of Communications from Kabu. Martin, tell us a bit about your background.
You know what? I had hoped to never hear those words again, because I think in the world of Zoom, yeah, you're on mute. And that was very embarrassing. Anyway, so yeah, I'm with Kabu. Kabu is a made in Canada ride hailing company. It's a tech startup. And actually, because of COVID, it's really a tech startup again. We initially started up in 2016, serving primarily the Chinese community. did 1.5 million trips for over 100,000 customers, and applied to have a legal ride-hailing license in the province of BC. And at that point, we had 60 full-time staff, 20 part-time staff. Things were going really well here at our headquarters in Richmond. Then we unplugged our app for legal reasons, because we wanted to go the legal route, because legislation was there. And then we got our license, big party in February of 2020. And then, of course, we all know what happened in March of 2020. So we're no longer 60 full-time and 20 part-time. We're probably closer to 15% of that today. And what that does is it presents an amazing opportunity to a lot of talented people here in the Lower Mainland. So as we're recovering, learning to live with COVID, we're seeing business grow, and we now need to fill positions that we've had to eliminate basically in order to survive. So we're truly, truly a tech startup. I'm the elder statesman. Don't think that everybody on our team is as old as me. Everybody's in their mid-20s, and it's a really cool environment here. Fantastic opportunity at Kabu. Thanks
for sharing, Martin. Let's move down to Claudia Ivanova, the head of human resources from FISPAN. FISPAN. Okay, Claudia, tell us a bit about yourself and your story.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. So like Chelsea said, my name is Claudia Ivanova. I'm the head of human resources at FISPAN. Just briefly, FISPAN is a API management platform for banks. So we integrate ERP systems and accounting platforms to banks to make business banking better for the bank's clients. We're also based in Vancouver. We actually just celebrated our 5th year anniversary last week. And I've been at FISPAN for just over 4 years now. We've seen a lot of growth. We're currently at about 120 people. That's included full-time, part-time, contractors. So we're really expanding, and we have a lot of people in Vancouver in our headquarters, but also across Canada, in the UK, in the Ukraine, and Ireland as well. So and I'll be good. But that's about me, and super happy to be here today.
Perfect. Thanks so much for sharing, Claudia. And thank you all for sharing your stories with us and for joining us today. Now, I've got a few of my own questions that I'm going to start us off with before we move over to the audience pitches and the questions from the audience. So I'll start off with you, Claudia. As a contextual business banking platform, which just greatly increased your staff this year, how would you describe FISPAN's company culture? What's your ideal company culture that you strive for as the startup rapidly expands?
Great question. And I had a little bit of time to think about that, but I'd say FISPAN's culture really stems from our management team. FISPAN was founded by our CEO, Lisa Shields. She was listening to pain points that businesses experienced using those commercial banking services at her previous company. And then she joined the 3 other co-founders to create FISPAN. And our management team really leads to transform, not to dictate. So they're really clear about the company's vision, to be recognized as the global leader in embedded and contextual banking, and they really value transparency. So both from top down and bottom up as the crux to really sustaining that strong culture. So from the very beginning, our culture and our leaders, they set the tone for that strong and open communication. We really just enable company-wide discussions on OKRs. We really want to keep our employees informed on anything and everything. So we actually have a weekly all hands on deck team meeting where all the employees gather around. Now it's virtually, but they gather around and we get to share our departmental updates and encouraging questions and making suggestions and really providing that constructive feedback. So the biggest thing is really communication for us and transparency, making sure you know what's going on, whether you're a co-op student here with us for 4 months or you're part of the executive and management team. So that's really something that we strive to have. And I think it makes our culture, I'm biased, but one of the better ones out there because of that openness and transparency.
Great answers. All right, I'm going to move down to, I've got a question for Martin here. So Martin, Kabu is a Canadian ride-hailing app in cities around the Lower Mainland, Whistler, Abbotsford, Kamloops, as well as Victoria and Kelowna. What makes your company culture stand out? What do your employees love about working for Kabu?
Actually, and I think that's a fantastic culture to have, is one of openness and you know, the titles that people have in our office here at Kabu are only titles, really. The doors are always open to communication, ideas, sharing ideas, suggestions on what to do to improve the organization. They're always welcome. So you've got the president and the CEO are just down the hall, and you know, just knock on the door if you need to chat with them. Their doors are open. They're going to be, you know, I remember the very first day I worked here, a couple of guys were bouncing tennis balls off the floor. And I thought to myself, this was in a movie somewhere of a tech startup, I swear. And it's that kind of relaxed environment. It makes it an enjoyable job. People have the opportunity to put their nose into their work and really hit it if they need to without any people bugging them. But at the same time, there's also, okay, you know what, I need a break. I need 5 minutes. Let's just chat. How was your weekend? And having that kind of culture in the office is fantastic. So you want to get your job done. You want to be accountable for the work that you do. You want to do it to the best of your ability. But you realize, and the office realizes, that you have to have a work-life balance. And that's what's made working at Kabu so amazing.
That's really great to know about Kabu. Okay, Kathy, I've got a question for you here.
Okay.
Klue is an AI-powered competitive enablement platform. Tell me, how do you continuously develop your company culture?
Yeah, that's a good question, because as companies grow, I'm sure Martin and Claudia can understand, like the culture has to sort of grow with it, and it might change a little bit, but as I like to say, it's like a quilt. There's these common threads that are always going to be there, but the quilt just gets larger and more beautiful as we grow. But we, you know, same as what Claudia mentioned, that it starts with our leadership team. You know, we make sure that our leadership walk and talk our culture, and everything they do and all of their actions, they show up the way we expect and want around our culture. But we also are really big on having our employees lead the culture. And so it's very much the entire group of Klue crew, as we call it. Everyone, we make sure that right from the moment they're hired, we give everyone a Klue code, which is the handbook, and it explains what culture means to us, what our traditions are, and how they should show up, and how it is everyone's responsibility, and what we expect of them with respect to culture. You know, how we expect them to show up, you know, how to call bullshit on someone that's maybe having a bad culture day, and to help them through that. A lot of our initiatives are actually employee-led versus leadership-led. And so we really try and make it a very fulsome and wholesome approach to culture. And it's not just the HR team, it's not just the leadership team. We start right from onboarding. It's everyone that makes up our culture. So that's how we are constantly evolving it and growing it.
I love the imagery of a quilt. I think that's great. Okay, I've got a question for Claudia. So with Feistband, so office sharing, with office sharing programs out there that offer perks like daily breakfast and snacks and Thursday afternoon drinks, how do you make your employees feel appreciated and connected at Feistband?
That's a great question. And I think it's no doubt been a challenge for a lot of different companies, especially during COVID. But what Feistband was able to do is we put a lot of kind of small and different initiatives in place. Right when COVID started, we did these weekly COVID challenges where 1 week was to post a baby picture of everyone. And so everyone got to see that, just to kind of get that culture going. We've done bi-weekly virtual games together, company-wide events too. We did a murder mystery one over Zoom. So just small activities like that. But just on top of those activities, something that we really wanted to implement was around mental health. We noticed that it was something that was very big at Feistband, and especially with COVID and working remotely, not being able to see your team that much. So that was a big focus for us. And so we actually implemented a mental health initiative that just started as a 30-day challenge, where people focus on self-awareness, daily mindfulness, and kind of having deeper connections. And it really resonated for the team. And so we decided to bring it on a full-time basis for everyone. So that was kind of something that we put in place, that we found people having more connections with each other. But we also did something that was a little bit more rare on the COVID side, as we actually opened a second office space. I don't think many people did that. There was a lot of shrinkage of square footage, but we added another office, and we really wanted to make sure people had a safe environment to come in if they wanted to have that bonding and connection with other people. So on top of the second space, we implemented a rapid screening test and contact tracing, just so people felt comfortable coming into the office, feeling connected and appreciated, and having that those relationships still.
I think that's wonderful to have initiatives to help people with like mental health, or just with like the stress load of working remotely. And is your office space downtown Vancouver, or?
Yes.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, I've got a question for Martin. What percentage of your employees work remotely, and how do you cultivate company culture in a remote environment with Kabu?
Well, it's only been really over the last couple of months that we've gone back to our offices. There was basically a period of about, I would say, over a year, where I think there might have been 2 or 3 people in our offices. Everybody was working remotely. We had basically our CTO was in the office managing the app, and maybe our president and CEO were in, and everybody else was encouraged to stay home and try to do as much work as they could from home. We were really concerned. We did have one of our colleagues tested positive while they were in the office. Fortunately, nobody else got sick, and he was in his own office. And so we got really lucky that way. And as a result, we got our vaccination access a little bit earlier because of that. WorkSafe BC recognized that. But generally, this is a story I share, with some people about the earliest days of COVID. My coworkers were actually wearing masks in the office in December of 2019.
Wow.
So we're talking 3 months before COVID was a big issue, because they heard from their own family members back in mainland China of how crazy COVID was. And so they're already concerned about it being in the community undetected. So we already had that safety culture in here. And now, especially, over the last couple of months, we've all had a chance to reconnect. Today, we did something I was unfamiliar. It's where, people serve you food and you eat when other people are around you. I don't know what you call that, but we had that. It was paid for by the boss. It was fantastic. So, you really do miss that connection. My wife calls me a social butterfly, and I love connecting with people. It's one of those perks of the job, being in communication. So I think we're reconnecting, and it's just going to make our company stronger moving forward.
Awesome. Great to hear that. And hopefully your employer, your coworker is all recovered from COVID.
Yeah, that was about 4 months ago. So it's all good. And we haven't had any other positives in the office. So we're very blessed.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Good to hear. Okay, Kathy, as a rapidly growing company, what qualities do you look for in job applicants to support the company ethos? A lot of companies are seeking passionate candidates. How would a passionate candidate benefit Klue?
That is a great question, and something we take a lot of time to determine as we're interviewing folks, because Klue is in a growing stage. We're early, we're building. we are always looking, like for us, I guess passion shows up in that we're looking for people that take a lot of initiative on their own to build. They just don't take things as status quo. They don't want a written job description. They're cool with it being, a little bit unwritten and maybe not determined yet, because we allow them to figure that out. And we expect them to tell us, if things could be done differently, better. And so that's what we're always sussing out for. That's, passion for us is, we call people like that. We're looking for builders. We're looking for folks that are going to help us on our journey, take Klue to the next level. We're looking for people that are actually going to, we also say ignite others around you. So they kind of build that enthusiasm with everyone that they're working with, so that everyone's on that same trajectory and we're all facing, pointed at that same North Star. So for us, that's really what we look for, because we know that's what it's going to take for Klue to successfully grow. Are folks that are going to actually contribute to that growth and help us map out the new product, the next new client, whatever it may be.
Awesome. Okay. Now, before we get into the questions from the audience, I see we're getting a bunch of questions come in through the chat, and that's great. Keep them coming. I wanted to invite the audience to enter our little pitch kind of competition event today. You can have the opportunity to have 30 seconds to pitch yourself to our guest speakers. All you have to do is in the chat, just type your name, your location, area of expertise, years of experience, and then I will pick 3 people to give a 30-second pitch about yourself. And the top speaker will win 30 minutes with BC Jobs to have a 30-minute workshop on resume or interview skills. So feel free to join. All right, I'm going to open up our panel today to audience questions. Now I'm just going through the chat here to our first question, which was from, let me see here, it was from Martin Chu. Martin, do you want to come on screen and ask your question? And did you have a specific company in mind, or is this question just to all 3 panel speakers? Okay, for all 3 companies. Okay, perfect. So I'll just read out your question here. Okay, I'm going to move down to Martin's next question here. He asks, does hiring remotely really mean we can be remote? For example, working from Hawaii, Mexico, Bali, etc., or is being based in Canada still a requirement for remote positions? This is a good question.
Happy to start here.
Sure.
It's a very, very, very good question. For us, it really depends on the position and the team that person would be working with. If they're working with clients, for example, and most of our clients are based in New York, for example, they would have to be on a similar time zone. But if it's software development, for example, where it's a little bit more lenient to work at different hours, it would be okay. So it really depends on the position. And even if we have someone in Vancouver who wants to spend a few months with their family in India, that's something that we accommodated. And it was something that we just talked about. Like I mentioned before, openness, communication, transparency, all of that, it all comes back to it. So just making sure you know what you're getting into and the expectations are clear, then it usually works out.
Awesome. Good to hear. And does Martin or Kathy have anything to add on to that?
I do, yeah. I will say that we are also somewhat flexible. However, there's just some legal things that kind of come into play in that we're not established in the US, for example. We're not established to do business in the UK right now. And so that actually does prohibit us from hiring individuals where we are not set up. Now, if someone's superstar and maybe unique, then we'll probably look at how we can get set up to actually pay them. But that does sometimes come into play, and that we just can't do it because of those reasons. Yeah.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And what about for Kabu?
Well, we're a tech company, so we're always open to looking at different ways of doing things. And I've got to say that I've learned a little bit through the experience of my wife. So my wife hasn't called in sick to work in 18 months because she's not in the same workspace as, 10 or 15 other people who,
Mm.
some of whom decide to pull, they decide to take one for the team and come into work even though they're sick. And then they're spending 8 hours coughing and spreading their viruses, and then sure enough my wife gets sick and other people get sick, right? So she's working from home now for as long as she wants, but that connectedness is lost. And we all do jobs for different reasons. We got to pay the bills, but I would say there are fringe benefits. You forge real friendships with people. You get to know them. You share stories and talk about things, and it makes it enjoyable. And when you're not connected in the same way, it can have an impact. So what I would say is for Kabu, I think we're in a period of transition where we're going to be looking at, the pros and cons of working remotely. And I would agree with both Claudia and Kathy is that it will really depend on each position.
Mhm.
And what works for one will definitely not work for the other.
That's so true. Okay, good to know. I'm gonna go down to our next question here. Lucian has a question for Kathy and Claudia. What kind of soft skills are you looking for when interviewing candidates for technical positions?
Yeah, we have a list of skills, not skills, but competencies and attributes. Actually, we tend to hire for that versus actual skills. And so we do have a good list. And a lot of those are around matching up with our company values. So one of our values is radical transparency. So very similar to Claudia and Feistband. And so we're kind of sussing out, what communication skills are like. And when, let's say, you're given feedback that's maybe difficult to hear, how do you handle that? How have you given difficult feedback that is actually delivered in a way to build someone up and not take them down? And so we tend to do questions around those soft skills that match up with our values, and those are just a couple of examples. Anyways, I could go on and on about it, but it's big for us. Soft skills are really actually quite critical for us. Yeah.
Yeah. And just to add on to what Kathy said, I sound like a broken record here, but it all goes back to communication for us at FISPAN as well. We are a smallish team, but you're going to be talking to so many different stakeholders at the company. So being able to communicate effectively to different types of people. So even if you're on the technical team, being able to communicate your ideas and share your ideas with the business team, for example, or the marketing team. There's so many different people that you need to be able to communicate effectively with all those different types of people. So that's definitely something that we look at, and one of our values as well. So it's just, it does tie back to what Kathy said about those values and tying it into that.
Absolutely. And if you have the links for your hiring pages, Kathy, Martin, and Claudia, feel free to pop them into the chat here for everyone to check out. Okay, our next question from James. He's asking, can you share a story about a recent hire and why was she or he chosen over the other candidates? James, did you want to come on screen here and ask your questions and maybe specify if you're asking to all three of our panel speakers or if you have a particular speaker in mind?
Yeah, sure, I can come on. Actually, it's just for every company because each and every company has their own story. So I think it would be nice to know what they check.
So James's question, can you share a story about a recent hire and why was she or he or they chosen over the other candidate?
Say for us, it kind of goes back to those values again, for sure. And then we, as I mentioned, we have a list of competencies and attributes that we're looking for each role. And so hopefully the successful candidate will check those. And it is just that as well, that individual that wants to be part of building Klue. And so quite often we're just hiring for completely different DNA than a large established company, you know, like an Amazon or Microsoft, great companies, just different DNA, and that we're looking for folks that are builders. And that's almost more important to us than their previous work experience. You know, obviously a little bit of previous work experience is super helpful, but not the be all and the end all. And as an example, we had a teacher that was looking to change careers and wanted to get into sales, like of all things. And of course, she taught for her whole life, and she has never done that. But she had the attributes and the competencies that we were looking for, and was able to communicate those out to us. And so we hired her without any previous work experience, and she's actually now one of our best sales folks, inside salespeople. So yeah, that's maybe a good story to tell.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear.
Yeah.
I don't know if Martin or Claudia have any stories or examples that they want to share from recent hires.
I can't think of any specific stories, but apart from the technical skills that are required for roles, we're looking for that culture and personality fit. And when you go through the phone screen process and then a technical interview, and then you're meeting your team, just making sure that everything clicks, not only for us as a company, but for that individual too. We want them to succeed just as much as we want the company to succeed. And if this isn't the best fit for them, they're not getting what they want out of it, it's not aligned with their values, that's also something that we look for. And part of our interview process, we send out a survey to ask the candidate if their values are aligned with Feistband values, just to get them thinking, maybe this isn't the right fit, or we're completely in line with the same values. So it's something that we want our candidates to think about, because we want them to stay not just for 6 months or a year, but for the long haul, because we match on those same values. So that's something else that we think about.
I'd just like to add from Kabu's perspective. So I know we've been looking to fill some key positions. And when I talked to the CTO, while he wants people that have a great education, he's looking for a little bit of experience too. And you know, in having conversations with some candidates in the past, they said, well, I don't have experience because nobody's hired me for the first time. And then we challenge them when we say, well, on your own time, what kind of things are you doing with your skills if you don't have a job yet? Have you done a hackathon? Have you done other stuff on your own that shows us the passion that you have and the product of your skills? And they kind of hear it's quiet a little bit because they haven't necessarily done that, because they haven't thought of doing that. So if you've got these amazing skills, that's great. If you don't have a job yet, try to gain that experience in other ways.
Okay, great answers. I've got a question from Lucian. Lucian, do you want to come on screen and ask your question for Kathy and Claudia? Question here, it's for Kathy and Claudia. What kinds of learning and professional development opportunities are your companies offering to employees?
We do an awful lot of sharing, to be honest. Right now, we're at that early stage. We don't, in all transparency, have large buckets of funds for professional development. So we actually do an awful lot of internal sharing, which is an amazing way to learn anyways. And then we will supplement that with some external learning. For example, we have some Udemy licenses for some professional development that way. There's some customer success or sales specific training that we might put individuals through. We also have a very deep enablement program that all of our new hires go through once a month, and it teaches everyone, whether you're in finance or sales, you get to spend time pitching our product and understanding what it's like to cold call and onboard a customer, just to give some good understanding of what everyone does in Klue and how it is a team effort to keep customers happy. And so that's something else that we have recently introduced. So, but I'm sure that will start to evolve as we get larger and hopefully with more revenues.
Very cool.
Yeah, no, kind of similar to what Kathy said. We have a rotational program at Feistband. So it's new from this year, but basically you can do rotations in different departments to understand kind of what Kathy said. On the sales team, how are they selling to clients? How do you do that pitch or that demo? You can join the marketing team to understand what the graphics are using and all those skills, and even intro to coding for people who have no knowledge on that side of things. So we've just implemented that rotational program for people who are interested, which so far it's been a good hit, so that's good. But we also do support additional learning. So if people are interested in doing their CPA, for example, that's something that we will support. We want you to continue your professional development and learning, so that's something that we will support. But yeah, no, we like having those programs in place.
Very cool. I've never heard of that before, but that sounds like a great program to offer your employees. Get to learn a little bit of everything. All right, I've got a question from Ridhi. Ridhi, do you want to come on screen here and unmute yourself to ask your question? And maybe specify who you want to ask the question to, or if it's to all three panel speakers. Yeah. I'll read out the question here. So given your value more competencies and attributes, how do you evaluate the, I think it's a required tech skills, say a candidate has 1 to 2 less skills from like the job pool but have a couple from somewhere else. So I guess having a kind of a mixture of different skills and talents. So how do you evaluate that when choosing the right candidate?
For every role, we do have sort of like a baseline of what are the minimum skills that you need to have just to be successful in the role, because we don't want to make anyone unsuccessful as well, right? Mm-hmm. So we do look for that, and we'll assess for those sort of minimum skills, and then layer on the competencies and attributes and sort of values that make it, I guess, a fulsome checklist. We have a very detailed scorecard that we run through every candidate, and so it's not quite as binary as a yes no, but it allows us to really evaluate each candidate on the same basis, but then looking at all different areas as well. But there is definitely sort of the minimum skill level that we'll look for.
Yeah, that's similar with Feistband as well, especially for our software development roles, for example. If we're looking for Java or JavaScript, something like that, those are must-haves. Yes. Just like Kathy said, they won't be successful in the role if they don't have them. But other things that might not be as important, but are nice to have, for example, if we see that you're willing to learn and you might be engaged in learning that and you want to be there, we can tell. And that's something that we don't have to have right from the bat. We can help you achieve that later on.
Yeah, I think Claudia hit the nail on the head there. I think there's a lot outside of even the soft skills and the hard skills that make a huge difference. And that's passion. Passion isn't a hard skill and a soft skill, but when you go into an interview and the interviewee, you get a sense that they've done their homework. They already know a little bit about your business. They've actually taken the time to go to your website and they ask a question based on the knowledge that they've gleaned from your site. That's an indication that, hey, they respect the opportunity to be interviewed and have gone the extra mile and are passionate about it. For example, for our company, you look into Kabu, you'll see that we were previously quite a well-established company, and now we're trying to get back to where we once were. And so there are going to be positions available, but the remuneration isn't necessarily going to be what it was when we had 60 full-time and 20 part-time staff and we're generating all these revenues. And so you might have fantastic skill set, but if you're not willing to maybe give a hometown discount or understand that you might not get paid the greatest salary for the first year, but as our business grows, you're going to be on the ground floor and you'll grow with us. Recognizing that opportunity, I think, is important.
Great to hear that. I've got another question from Lucien for all three amazing speakers. How the candidates pipeline is looking at the moment. I am asking this question in connection with the fact that the Canadian borders are almost closed from March 2020, and many university courses, exams, and graduation ceremonies were held online. Are any of these events affecting the pipeline of candidates for hiring?
Happy to jump in here first. What we've noticed with COVID is that we are competing a lot with the bigger companies, so Amazon and Microsoft, especially because everyone is remote. And so Amazon, maybe in Seattle, is saying, well, we can just hire Canadian employees and they can work in Canada, stay where they are, they don't have to move, but we might pay them the American salary, for example. So that's kind of the shift that we're seeing. And hopefully it changes soon, but that was something that we saw right off the bat.
Yeah, we're seeing the exact same. It's maybe not a shortage of candidates, just a much more competitive landscape right now, because of, I think the remote situation. So but other than that, it's not that much different than before.
Is Kabu seeing the same thing as well?
You know what, I haven't really talked to the team recently specifically about that, but we're still, we're much smaller. The number of positions we have available, the number of people that we have brought in, I think it would be hard for us to know for sure.
Right. Yeah, I imagine a lot of work's being outsourced these days. As you said, Seattle to Vancouver, it's cheaper to hire Canadians than to hire Americans with our exchange rate. Okay, and Martin's got a question here. What are the keys to building a good remote working culture? And I don't think this is intended for anyone specific. So if anyone has some thoughts on that, feel free to share.
I'd say we've all been tested at this, haven't we, in the last year? And I think we all walked into it going, I don't know what to do now, but I think we figured it out in that it takes a lot of effort, I'd say, and that from everyone. It's no one single person's role to figure out how to keep culture strong during remote times. And so it's making sure that you empower everyone to be part of that culture and to be active in it, whether it's active on Zoom or active on Slack, just to participate and be part of it. And then as well, lots and lots of check-ins. I know our leaders do lots of check-ins, and it isn't just, how is work going and do you have any, hurdles? It's, you know what, Claudia, how are you doing? Like, tell me, are you feeling okay? Are you surviving? And so it's getting a little bit more personal, which is okay, because it hasn't been easy for everyone. And so I think that culture of caring will make sure that you have those connections. It's the connections that we've been really focusing on and making sure everyone feels connected. However, and we've been using technology, we've been using Zoom, we've been doing whatever we can just to keep that connection strong.
And I think that's so important to feel that your employers or your team cares about you and is checking in on you. So that's really nice to hear that Klue's doing that.
Yeah, we noticed that as well, especially kind of right before we did the mental health initiative. We were wondering, how are people feeling, and just asking those simple questions, but especially with the people who were alone during COVID, who didn't have roommates or family members that they were staying with, they were just themselves, and that was it. So just checking in, exactly what Kathy said, being able to just talk about it. How is your dog doing, or anything happening at home? Just those small questions, they go a long way. And then just to add on to what Kathy said as well, at the beginning, we really emphasize just overly communicate everything, just whether it's Slack or Zoom, anything like that, just overly communicate with your team. And then I think it's an ongoing challenge, because then we came up with Zoom fatigue and how much was over communication. So I think it's going to be a process for a very long time. I think it's just continuously finding out what is working, and maybe something that's working now might not work in 2 months or 3 months. So just keeping an eye on that as things change.
Being willing to pivot, I think, is exactly it. I always say, look, we're building this plane as we're flying it, so please be patient. Yeah.
And I think you mentioned earlier, Claudia, that you had like game nights and virtual events to keep your team connected. I'm just wondering if Kathy or Martin has anything to share about events that they've been doing within their companies.
Well, Well, I wanted to mention a couple things. One is, although we're kind of paid to have all of the answers, we don't have all of the answers.
Yep.
And we're all learning. It's an experience. It's a worldwide thing, and we're all striving to get better at what we do and address all the concerns. But it is a learning experience. I also wanted to mention that I think the key is that we need to kind of empathize with one another, what's happening, and realize that I think things are going to get better down the road, and how do we all get there together while maintaining our sanity.
Yeah, and also kind of just off of that, also everyone is experiencing COVID very differently. And so having empathy to understand that my COVID is maybe very, very different than yours, Martin, for example. So being able to understand that and help everyone differently to as much as we can is good as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Actually, sorry, there was one other thing I wanted to mention too.
Sure.
And I think this has kind of been lost, is it's COVID related Zoom fatigue. So what I didn't realize is I thought, well, you know what, whether you have a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting, it's the same thing. Well, it's not. You have to pay attention in a Zoom meeting way more than you would if you're in the same room. You can tell if you're in the same room with somebody, you can tell if the question is directed specifically at you. Versus if you're on a Zoom meeting, you're not so sure. And as a result, the energy that it takes to participate in a Zoom meeting is off the charts compared to if you're in the same room with somebody. And as a result, how many hours of these Zoom meetings are we expected to be able to endure? And how is that fatigue bleeding into our non-work hours? So that's, again, part of that whole learning process.
And I guess there's no easy answer to that. It's something that we're, across industries, we're all figuring that one out.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. All right, we've got a question from Robert Chang. Robert, do you want to jump on screen here and ask your question?
Sure. It's just a question for all the guests about what's the interviewing process at your company, namely number of interviews and types of interviews, specifically, let's say for technical roles, like maybe even like a developer. And before I hand over for answers, I just wanted to thank Martin for his comment about passion. And when people say they don't have a job, but passion is very easy to follow without a job, especially when it comes to developer roles. There's so much you can do when it comes to a developer that doesn't require a job. You can build different projects, lots of free resources out there. So for sure, for somebody looking for a developer role, you definitely should have been doing a lot of things on your own to be able to demonstrate when it comes to an interview, and it doesn't have to be job related. So thanks.
Yeah, we're actually after the call, feel free to go to our careers page, because we actually publicly post our process for every role. It is a little bit different for every role. For technical, we real quickly go through an HR get to know you interview. Then it's usually hiring manager, a coding test, and then a team interview, and that's it. We try and keep it as tight as possible.
Yeah, ours is pretty much the same. That first conversation with HR, kind of just understanding your personality a little bit more, and then a coding test for technical interviews, and then a more team-based test, or not test, but interview communication, conversation with the team. So that's very similar to Kathy's as well.
And ours is very similar as well.
Okay, so no no double ups. I that was a term that I just heard. No like group interviews or anything like that.
Not at this point.
No.
Not
Okay.
typically for us. Sometimes we do have maybe 2 hiring managers, but no more than 2.
I hope that answers your question, Robert. All right, we've got another one from Lucy in here. For Martin, Claudia, and Kathy, how do you see the IT market from the hiring point of view at the moment and in the next few years to come?
So our team, we used to have a dozen UI UX people in our company, and right now we have 3. aside from the CTO. So are there opportunities from the coding side of things? Absolutely. As we generate more revenues and we're going to be able to hire more people, yeah, absolutely. There's growth opportunities, but there are opportunities in other departments as well. So we're talking marketing, we're talking HR. So I would suggest if you've got a diversity of skills, especially at a small company like ours, where you're able to do a little bit of everything, it's going to be valued even more.
Yeah, we're about the same as well. It's almost like if you know one language, it's not that hard to learn another, and we're willing to teach and train as long as that passion and values and all that.
Okay, we've got a question from Renzo. Renzo, did you want to join us on screen to ask your question here?
Yes. Hi, how are you? First, thank you for sharing all your knowledge. I'm from Peru, and my question is for all you guys. It's if it's possible for a person with a free trade agreement, in this case between Peru and Canada, to apply and get a job without being physically there.
I'm no expert. Let me just go on record saying I'm no immigration expert. From what I know, it will depend on your background. To be honest, things like education, language, years of experience, and so it's best just to go on and check. You don't need to be here in Canada to get a work permit. You can do it from outside of Canada as long as you qualify for one of them. There's a few different work permits out there that are available, from the global talent stream to the tech. It's not the tech pilot program anymore. It's the tech program, I guess, under the BC PMP. So maybe just check out, and you can do an online points assessment to see if you qualify.
And I just wanted to add on that BC Jobs provides immigration panels several times a year. Our next one is expected in early November. So I would suggest joining that, and you can actually hear from immigration consultants and lawyers about how to find work in Canada. So our next event will be posted online, and I can actually follow up with you later, Renzo, about that.
Yeah, I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, in terms of hiring, are your companies looking for more junior talent or senior talent? Like a lot of students, who are looking for work right out of university, often, will get passed up for opportunities because companies will want, more senior talent in their companies.
So I can start off here. At Feistband, we have a big range of who we're looking for. On the senior side, we are looking for senior software developers, for example, but those positions will specifically have senior in the title. So people know what to expect. This is someone that we're looking for maybe 10 plus years experience. But Feistband actually has a really good co-op program. So we love working with students. We have a lot of students who come on, work with us for about 4 to 8 months, and then either get hired afterwards or stay on part-time until they're done school. So we also have that. And then we also have a new graduate position as well. So we are looking for students who have just graduated. We want them to grow with us. So I've posted our link, but all the positions are there, but definitely a wide range on the Feistband side.
Perfect. That's really cool.
It depends on the role, to be honest. Historically we have, for example, on the developer side, hired a little bit on the more senior level, but we're now getting to the size where we're starting to build out the team at the junior level and hire some co-ops. Some of our other teams, though, for example, inside sales, marketing, we do hire recent grads all the way up. So all ranges as well. Yeah,
at Kabu, I believe it's chiefly junior.
Okay, great news for people graduating from university.
Absolutely.
Okay, Lucia's got a question here for all three of you. How do you recognize team members from their work?
That's a great question. We actually just implemented kind of an employee recognition program because, especially with being remote, it's a lot harder to kind of see what your other employees or coworkers are doing. So we just implemented that, and we have a weekly deck that gets sent out every Friday. And so we have a slide for the employee recognition. And then we actually send out a handwritten note to those people in the mail. So they might think that, oh, 1 week my name is there and kind of forget about it, but then they get a nice message in the mail that has been very well received so far. So that's kind of what FISPAN does.
We do. We're very sort of unofficial in it, and we get a lot of. It's all that sort of inspiring each other and igniting each other. The amount of call outs that we all do for each other on Slack is how we're doing it. So no good deed goes unnoticed, and everyone just feels so good about, you know, posting a note about on Slack about what this amazing thing someone did, and usually the entire company piles on with comments and emojis, and especially now virtually, everyone can really feel the love, and that's just what's worked well for us at Klue.
That's a real, a great morale booster. Okay, I've got another question for all three of you. Are there any projects or initiatives that are coming up this year that you're really excited about for your company?
Oh, we're growing, we're hiring. That's all I can think about is hiring right now, to be honest. What are we going to do to hire more
I mean,
folks?
growing is exciting.
Yeah. And that's a big project. We're about to move into a new office because we have grown so much, and we are actually coming back to an office. So we're excited about that. That was supposed to happen next month. We'll see with Dr. Bonnie's new restrictions. So something will happen anyways, in that we will be working on a new office. And I take the office, it's a big culture thing as well, the office and the design and the flow and everything. So that one means a lot to me.
Perfect. Great answers. All right. Do we have any more questions from the audience here? If we don't have any more questions, then I will just start to wrap this panel up a little bit earlier. Unless Claudia, Martin, or Kathy have anything that they want to add on here before we wrap up for today.
Been a great conversation, but I'm good.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was very, very fun. And if anyone has any questions or anything at all, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to have a conversation with anyone.
All right, so I'm going to wrap up this panel for today. Claudia, Martin, and Kathy, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on our panel. Thank you so much for joining us. If anyone is looking for work, check out FISPAN, Kabu, and Klue's hiring pages. The links are in the chat. And don't forget to join us next month on September 20th for our next guest panel speaker series, and mark your calendars to come join us on October 7th at our virtual career fair. Details will be online soon for registrations. All right, so thank you so much, everyone, and hope you have a wonderful week. And hope to chat with all of you again sometime.
Chelsea, you did a fantabulous job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, everyone.
Yes, stay safe.
Take care.